Hey, everybody out there in podcast land. Welcome to the latest episode of the Fortress of Rock. I am the Maestro, Kevin Crane. Glad to have you aboard here for episode 41, May the 27th, 2022. First and foremost, I hope everybody out there, you and yours, have a great, relaxing, fun Memorial Day weekend. Whether you're going to be barbecuing, watching races on Sunday, rocking out to some great tunes. Enjoy it. The official start to summer is finally here. Little bit of news of the world for you here this week. Of course, news of the world is our tribute to Freddie Mercury and Queen. On the touring front, the Legacy of the Beast tour, Iron Maiden, finally has gotten going again. Had a shot at going to see Iron Maiden on this tour, and just the fates conspired against me. So looks like Iron Maiden is going to end up being one of those bands that unfortunately I never get to see. They're few and far between, but yeah, a couple times I've had a chance to see Iron Maiden, and technical glitches kind of screwed everything up both times. So can't be perfect. I've already got the one that I whine and cry and moan about all the time because I had a really good shot of seeing Tom Petty on his last tour before he unfortunately and untimely passed away. And didn't get to see the show, didn't pull the trigger on tickets. So that's the one that really to this day haunts me, that I never got to see Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers live. Still a shot at Iron Maiden. Still could happen. Bruce Springsteen and the E Street Band are going out on tour in 2023. Now, I have seen the boss, and I'm hoping to see him again next year. International dates have been announced. Figuring the U.S. legs will be announced at some point here soon. They'll probably be split, some dates before the international dates, and then a second leg late summer and into the fall of 2023 for the second leg. So doesn't matter how you feel about his politics. The man puts on a great show. So if you can go see him and you can afford it, I'm not sure. He usually is a little pricey, but he's not up there in Eagles territory when it comes to gouging the fans. So check out the boss. A band that I really, really liked back in the 90s, had 3 albums, got a lot of airplay on rock radio, was Brother Kane. And Brother Kane looks like they are getting back together to record a new album. I guess they've already done a couple dates. I believe 2 of the original 4 members are in this new incarnation, including the lead singer / guitarist. I believe it's Damon Johnson. So I'm looking forward to that. I was always, like I said, a big, big fan of Brother Kane. Had all 3 of their albums. Still got them somewhere around here, buried in a crate or a box or in one of the 15 different CD storage cabinets I've got floating around the house. Couple of passings to unfortunately discuss with you. Now, I wasn't much of a Depeche Mode type of guy. Do love the song Personal Jesus. Sammy Hagar and the Circle covered that during the COVID pandemic when they put out their Short But Sweet Covers album. But outside of Personal Jesus, I really didn't care much for Depeche Mode. But one of their founding members, Andy Fletcher, passed away here recently. So thoughts and prayers to the Depeche Mode family. And then, really significant, the drummer for Yes, Alan White, passed away. So I've liked Yes. I appreciated them a little bit more when they did become more accessible with 90125. But they still had good stuff back in their really, really heavy prog rock days. Of course, Roundabout, Long Distance, Run Around, Seen All Good People. So, thoughts and prayers to the Yes family as well on the passing of Alan White. Then finally, circling back to somewhat kind of tour news again, although this is more about a residency than it really is about an actual tour. Unfortunately, Steven Tyler has to go into rehab again. Boy, it's hard pressed to find a band that's more messed up than Aerosmith. I guess that's rock and roll, though, right, kids? So Steven Tyler to rehab. That means in their long, long planned residency in Las Vegas, they have had to cancel 8 shows in June and July this summer. And I think we talked about this a little while back. The potential, the possibility, are we ever going to get a Aerosmith farewell tour? Boy, the way things are going, I would say probably not. It would be a miracle if they could pull it off. But stranger things have happened. Oh, speaking of which, don't forget Stranger Things Season 4 actually dropped today on the 27th as I'm taping this. I know, a little bit of a tangent, but couldn't let that cool wordplay pass me by without letting you guys know that one of the coolest shows of the past 6-7 years is back. All right, that'll do it for News of the World. Segment 1 is done. It's going to be a short show this week, kids. But I'm going to give you everything I got in terms of the news. It's just kind of slow right now in terms of significant things to really talk about in the world of music. But segment 2, of course, is our review segment. So going to discuss the Black Crowes Amazon exclusive Covers EP 1972. Couple songs from Journey and Def Leppard. Of course, Def Leppard next week. Here on The Fortress, we will review the full album. Just came out today, Diamond Star Halos. I'm looking at my CD copy that just arrived from Amazon about an hour ago. Cannot wait to fire it up. And that's the song we're going to be reviewing in the breakdown segment. So hang out with me for a little bit. I'm the Maestro, and I will be right back. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Fortress of Rock podcast with me, the Maestro, Kevin Crane. Of course, that was segment 1, the news of the world, our tribute to Freddie Mercury and Queen, where we look back at the past week in rock and roll and all the news and all the controversies that you deserve to know about. Next up is the heart of the show, the meat and potatoes breakdown, where we are going to review all the new songs, all the new albums, all the new concert tours, the shows that I've seen personally. Stay tuned for that. Of course, we're now available on Spotify, Anchor, Apple, Stitcher, Castbox, Google, Pocket Cast, and Radio Public, wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Hang out, kids. We'll be right back. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Segment 2 of the Fortress of Rock here on May the 27th, 2022 is, of course, Breakdown in tribute to Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. An EP for you this week and 2 songs from classic 80s bands that are still around and still creating interesting music. First and foremost, let's review the Black Crowes Amazon exclusive EP of cover songs from 1972. Of course, that's the title of the EP. I have to admit, I was a little disheartened by this. After all the time apart, of course, the Black Crowes have a very antagonistic, brotherly type relationship between the Robinsons. Kind of like Oasis. But they mended fences a few years back, went on tour. I just find it, again, I know this is a point I harp on, it seems like almost every week, but I just find it ridiculous, the lack of creativity or the lack of creative energy from these bands. You're telling me the Black Crowes didn't have time here to get together and maybe put together at least an EP of original material instead of cover songs? So in that sense, I came into this a little bit skeptical, a little bit downhearted. First song, Rolling Stones, Rocks Off. Don't mess with the Stones. I don't care who you are. Don't mess with the Stones. The Black Crowes really don't add anything new or different or intriguing to Rocks Off. So first track I pass on. Second track I will also pass on. T-Rex's The Slider. Again, just the Black Crowes don't seem to fit the T-Rex mold. Well, then finally we get to song 3, which this is one that works. Rod Stewart's You Wear It Well. The Black Crowes do a great job with this song. This song seems to be a little bit more in line with them stylistically. Then song 4, Easy to Slip from Little Feat. Again, this one worked really well with the Crowes. They did a great job with it. I like this one a lot as well. Then we get to song 5, Moon Age Daydream. I almost have the same feelings about this one. Of course, it's David Bowie. Same feelings I had about the first song, Rocks Off. You don't mess with the Stones, and you probably shouldn't mess with Bowie either. And I could actually see the Black Crowes fitting a little bit better into the Rolling Stones type of music than I can with David Bowie. So I'll definitely pass on Moon Age Daydream. Then finally, the sixth and Final song on 1972. Papa Was a Rolling Stone. Of course, The Temptations classic. And again, this you can tell the pattern of how I'm looking at these songs. For this project, I think it was very important for the musical stylings of the Black Crowes to fit the material. Now, it works on the final song. They do a great job of Papa Was a Rolling Stone. So 3 out of the 6 songs here on 1972 I liked a lot. The other 3 were a waste of time, in my opinion. But limiting themselves to 1972, I don't know if they'd expanded it a little bit, gone for some other bands, some other songs from the early 70s maybe. Again, I just don't see how they thought they would be able to pull off a David Bowie cover. And you don't mess with the Stones. So you be the judge, kids. You go out, you listen to it. If you got Amazon Prime, it's free to stream. Don't buy the CD. Trust me. Do not buy the CD. Last time I checked, 6 songs and it was running $14.99 on Amazon. Whew. Way too pricey. Something I've been doing more and more of lately is listening to stuff on Amazon and Spotify and not buying the physical CDs. So even a stubborn guy like me, Mr. Get Off My Lawn, is starting to come around and realizing that with all these resources out there, all these musical resources, why am I overpaying price-wise in a lot of cases for a CD? But like I said, you be the judge. You check this out. 3 out of 6. If you're in baseball, hitting 500 is phenomenal. It's record setting. But when it comes to music, I don't think 3 out of 6 is anything to really crow about. All right. 2 songs from 80s icons, bands that are still out there putting out new music, touring, still raking in the cash. First up, I mentioned in the initial segment this week that Def Leppard's new album, Diamond Star Halos, is finally out. And I will review it next week, but I've already got a review in place for the 3rd single, even though it's just a week before the review of the entire album will hit for everybody out there who listens to The Fortress. The 3rd single is Fire It Up. And it is great. Arguably could be the best of the 3 quote-unquote singles so far. Looking at the sequence on Diamond Star Halos, they basically put the first 3 songs on the album out as the first 3 singles, because the album starts off with Take What You Want, goes to Kick, and then goes to Fire It Up. Def Leppard is not trying to reinvent the wheel here, but they are, in my opinion, honing their skills, sharpening things up by going back in time and trying to catch some of that energy from High and Dry and Pyromania and Hysteria. So I will have my review, as I mentioned, of the full album next week, but Fire It Up is a damn good 3rd single. Now, talking about trying to reinvent the wheel, that leads me into Journey's 3rd single off the album Freedom, coming out in July. Let It Rain. I don't know what to make of this. This is intriguing to me. This does not sound a lot like Journey to me. Just like the last single, it has more of a live in studio, sludgy, imperfect vibe to it. That being said, the song is not bad at all, but it just doesn't sound like Journey. And again, not a bad thing. Trying something different. I know I said with Def Leppard, I really didn't want them to try anything different. They've already been down that road with slang. But Journey, yeah, it's about time Journey tried something different. So Let It Rain is different for Journey. Sludgy, grungy. I just really, I'm having a hard time describing the song to you. You guys just got to check it out for yourselves. At least it's not a power ballad. How about that? And it's not a bad song. It'll probably grow on me in time, even though I've already listened to it 4 or 5 times already. I could see it growing on me. And of course, in the end, it's going to depend on how it fits into the context of the entire album, Freedom. So there you go, kids. That is segment 2 this week. Breakdown is done. And of course, stick around to the end of this episode, as we always do every week. I will give you a preview of what to expect in the upcoming weeks in terms of reviews. Gee, I wonder if I'll be mentioning Diamond Star Halos again. But that's it for segment 2. Breakdown is over. We got a really nice, comprehensive segment 3. I want to go back, anniversaries and birthdays. So stick around for that. I will be right back. All right, now that we've looked at the current state of music in our breakdown segment, it is time to climb into the DeLorean and travel back in time to look back at moments in rock and roll history, birthdays, deaths, anniversaries of song and album releases. It is time for I Want to Go Back, our tribute to Eddie Money. Stay tuned. And as always, we're on Spotify, Anchor, Apple, Stitcher, Castbox, Google, Pocket Cast, and Radio Public, anywhere where you listen to your favorite podcasts. Welcome back. Segment 3, Fortress of Rock, episode 41. Dropping tonight, right after I'm done taping this, May the 27th, 2022. Just in time for your Friday night for your long Memorial Day weekend. Of course, segment 3, as always, is I Want to Go Back, or look back at classic album releases, moments in rock history, and of course, birthdays. So let's start off with some birthdays. We just talked about the Black Crowes in our review segment, Breakdown. 65 years old today, May the 27th, born in 1957, Eddie Harsh, the Black Crowes keyboardist. 1 year later, same day, May the 27th, 1958, Neil Finn was born. Puts him at 64 years old. Of course, Neil Finn has been involved in a lot of significant bands. Started out in Split Enz. That's the one I believe he was in with his brother, Craig. Wait a minute. I'm getting my Finns mixed up. I apologize. Craig Finn's coming later here on the show. But I know Neil Finn was in Split Enz with his brother, not Craig Finn. Just too many damn Finns in the rock and roll world, I guess. Finns to the left, Finns to the right, to quote the great Jimmy Buffett. Anyway, I digress. Neil Finn, of course, was in Split Enz with his brother. Then he was in Crowded House, who had the mega smash hit Don't Dream It's Over. And then recently, he was recruited by Fleetwood Mac to take over for Lindsey Buckingham, who had departed the band. Not very amicably. So Neil Finn slipped right into Fleetwood Mac, one of the biggest bands in rock history. So Neil Finn's had a pretty good rock and roll life. Still got some time left. He's 64 years young today. And then finally, last but not least, not in my eyes at least, 1966, this day, May the 27th, 56 years old, the awesome founding drummer of Alice in Chains, Sean Kinney, was born. I'll tell you what, it makes me feel really, really old because Sean Kinney is actually a year younger than me. And I don't know why, but it just makes me feel old. All right, some anniversaries to look at in rock history. Starting off, going all the way back, May the 27th, 1957, Buddy Holly and the Crickets released the monstrous hit, That'll Be the Day. Big, big hit overseas in the UK as well as here in America. Tweaking the date a little bit here for our next anniversary. We're going to move back a couple days this past week, but not today. May the 24th, 1988, OU-812 was released. Of course, OU-812 was the second glorious album from Van Halen that featured Sammy Hagar on vocals. It is a great, great album. I had some issues with Balance. Being the Van Halen fanatic that I am, I still think Balance was the overall weakest album ever released by Van Halen, but no such issues with OU-812. Fantastic, fantastic album. Going back to May the 27th, today in 1994, in California, the Eagles played their first show together in 14 years. And if I recall properly, feel free to correct me, drop me a line, check out the Facebook page if I've got this wrong. But I believe that was the Hell Freezes Over tour, at least the beginning of it. And I was supposed to see him on that tour. There were issues. If you remember, Glenn Fry, I believe, had to have emergency, abdominal or stomach surgery. So they had to postpone the show that I had tickets for along with a bunch of others. And just like now, even back then in the early and mid 90s, the Eagles loved to price gouge their fans when it came to tickets. So I decided to bail and just get a refund instead of waiting for the rescheduled date. So you've seen the theme here, because once again, I will say I have never seen the Eagles live in concert. There you go. And then a very, very sad note here from May the 27th, 2017. A performer along with his band that it took me a long time to really appreciate them and him and get into the band. Of course, I'm talking about the Allman Brothers. And Gregg Allman died on this day in 2017 at the age of 69 years old. I was fortunate enough to see him solo live. I believe it was in 2016, so about a year roughly before he died. So for all the complaining I've been doing about Tom Petty and Iron Maiden and the Eagles, I did get lucky on Gregg Allman and did get to see him before he passed. And of course, this segment would not be complete if I didn't give you a quick rundown of all my sources. UltimateClassicRock.com, ThisDayInMusic.com, and the Van Halen News Desk. Now, I get a lot of my ideas for some of these stories from those three websites, but the opinions are mine and mine alone. Don't want to get anybody in trouble. Cancel culture. PC, delicate sensibilities. All right, as I mentioned, kids, this is going to be a shorter Fortress of Rock episode this week. The Maestro's fighting off some agonizing back pain, so I have to limit myself in terms of what I can do, which unfortunately means I'm going to have to limit this week's episode of The Fortress. But I do have the stamina and the energy, that's what she said, to get you through the final segment where we're going to preview everything that I'll be reviewing coming up in the next 2 or 3 weeks. So hang out for just a few more minutes. Wrap It Up is coming up next. Well, we hope you enjoyed our trip back in time, looking back at the anniversaries, the classic moments in rock and roll history. But of course, the DeLorean works both ways. So now we have to move forward. The last segment here, as always, on the Fortress of Rock with me, the Maestro Kevin Crane. Spotify, Anchor, Apple, Stitcher, Castbox, Google, Pocket Casts, Radio Public, wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. It's all about the future. What's coming out here in the next month or two? What songs? What albums? What concert tours? That's why we call it Wrap It Up. Thanks to the fabulous Thunderbirds. Thanks to you for hanging out. Here comes our final segment. All right, kids, it's time to wrap it up. Tribute to the fabulous Thunderbirds here, segment 4, as always. Our look ahead to some of the things I will be reviewing in the upcoming weeks here on the Fortress of Rock. But first, I mentioned the Facebook page earlier. Check us out on Facebook. Of course, leave a comment here on the Spotify feed if you listen to us through that. Otherwise, I assume you're listening through Google, Radio Public, Pocket Cast, Breaker, Apple, Overcast, Castbox, or Stitcher, the other platforms where you can find the Fortress of Rock. So let me mention it again, because it is one of the most highly anticipated rock releases of the last couple years. Def Leppard's new album, Diamond Star Halos, released today. I will have a full review for you. Pretty long album here. Looks like 15 tracks. Some interesting titles: Liquid Dust, Gimme a Kiss That Rocks. So, interesting. I'm hoping they keep the power ballads to a minimum. Definitely on the slate for next week, though, Def Leppard. Still intend to listen to Wilco double album, Cruel Country. That also was just released today, May the 27th. Probably be a couple weeks before I get into that. But I do like Wilco. I'm willing to give it a shot. Of course, I have been looking forward to the Black Mood's new album, Into the Night, for quite a while. And that is coming out here in just a week. So that review is coming very, very soon here on The Fortress. If you've never listened to anything from the Black Moods, check them out. They are fantastic. And I do also still plan on at some point here reviewing A Legacy of Rentals, the new album from Craig Finn. No, not one of the Finns who was in Split Enz. Yes, I made a major rock and roll faux pas on that one. I have not checked out my Spotify new release radar yet to see if there's any new singles. So for now, those 4 albums are what you've got to look forward to in terms of recorded music. Coming up in about 3 weeks' time. Hopefully, my health situation will not keep me from checking out on June the 15th. Sammy Hagar and the Circle, along with George Thorogood, live in Noblesville, Indiana. And then, of course, about a week and a half after that, the long-delayed, postponed COVID show, Billy Joel at Notre Dame Stadium. Been looking forward to that one literally for 3 years. So we'll have a review of that one coming up for you towards the end of June. So once again, thanks a lot, as always, for hanging out with me on this Friday night. Episode 41 is a wrap, but there will always be next week in episode 42. So until then, kids, I'll say it one last time. Listen to some Def Leppard. We can run through the album together on next week's podcast. So I'm the Maestro, Kevin Crane. Again, have a great, safe, fun Memorial Day weekend. And I will check you out next Friday night.